There is 5 owner build mistakes that you have to avoid or they'll be catastrophic to your project. One of the biggest mistakes most people doing owner builds make is the fact that they go talk to their lender before they're ready. Now, it's okay. If you have a relationship with your lender, it's okay to source lending options before you get started. But it's not okay to ask for an approval or denial before you actually have your prints fully completed. Now, one of the biggest mistakes and one of the biggest disappointments that most people doing owner builds have is the fact that they go in prematurely to go get an approval, resulting in a denial. And so I always tell people, don't put the cart in front of the horse. Make sure that anytime you're doing an owner build, that you take the time to source the land in an area that supports the resale price of what the overall cost of the build is and the overall equity stack is going to give you in return on investment. Now, most people make the mistake of overbuilding in an area that is less affluent. Don't go into an area with less affluency and go in and try to build the biggest home or the most expensive home in that area. In fact, you want to do the contrary. You want to go into an area that supports the upper demographics and be one of the smaller or median homes in that demographical area, because then you know that for resale purposes, you're always going to sit within a threshold of resale for an exit strategy. So number 2, make sure that you vetted your comps before you tie up the lot and before you start your prints. Now, if you go in, you start your prints and tie up a lot before you do your comps, you may land up in an area with less affluency and a minimal amount of equity, if any equity at all, because you have to check comps. Everything has to be bank-based. Now, what I always make certain of is that when I go into a demographical area, I've checked all comps, that I know exactly what homes have resale for. I want to know what the current market holds for resale value in that given area. And if all boxes check mark, then we'll go in and we'll secure a lot in that demographical area. Then we know that we can build the house of our dreams, the house that we want for ourselves in that area with both equity and a return on investment, provided that we check comps first and we're in an area that supports the overall resale value of the houses that are in that area. Now, hence, position yourself nationwide to be in an area where homes are selling for in excess of $275 per square foot. Now, a new home typically sells for 15% more than an older home. So if you go into a demographic area that has affluency, has nice homes, but those homes are 5 years, 10 years, 15 years old, and you are the new kid on the block, that's okay. Just understand that when you underwrite it to the current performance of resale values and comps in that area, and assume post-construction, if you list it, that the house is going to be 15% higher and greater in value than pre-existing homes. Now, if you've underwrote it for the worst case scenario, but you execute for the best case scenario, you always know there's going to be an upside profit in that home. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be on the higher end than the lower end, provided you did your homework and ran your comp first. Now, number 3 is always vetting your pricing. I don't care if you go in and you've gotten a price a few months ago, always continue to value engineer your project from start to finish. One of the biggest mistakes most people make is they'll sit back and they'll do an overall price per square foot. They'll say, well, Jerome said, right? Jerome said I could build this house for $160 a square foot. But Jerome didn't go out and manage your project for you. So the same person that can go out and build for $165 a square foot, $160 a square foot, $155 a square foot, there might be someone right down the road that just does it retail. They're busy. They don't manage the project. They don't manage the finances, and they build it for over $200 a square foot. And if you're not careful and you don't vet your project yourself, you might land up at $200 a square foot just from the inattentive nature of not putting your project out to bid. Now, when I tell people to go out and retain 3 bids per trade, that's what I mean. Retain 3 bids per trade, because it gives you leverage, it gives you negotiation, and it also puts you in a position where you have options. And options are everything when you're building, because somebody might seem as though they're the best opportunity because of price, or somebody might seem like they're the best opportunity if they speak a good game. But then when it comes to execution, the person who speaks the good game might not have bandwidth. They might not have the ability to service you right. They might put you 2 weeks, 2 months behind schedule. You need to be in a position where you have options, you got leverage, because options with leverage gives you the opportunity to execute and manage your project correctly. And so make sure that you vet your projects as you're going into the architectural phase of your build. When you get a preliminary set of plans, that's about 95% there, send that project out to bid. And before you even go to banking, you're going to need a budget spreadsheet. So just like item number one, which is the most catastrophic issues most people have, is that they go to the bank too early. The bank needs affirmation that you can build this house for the price of its value. And if you can't, they're not going to give you a loan. So it's detrimental that you go out and you put your project out to bid. Now, the big question is always, well, where do I find my contractors? And for a lot of you guys that have no contractors, haven't been in the field, and don't have relationships, where do you find good quality contractors? Well, you find them in the field where they're actually working. We don't live in a nation that promotes monopolies, nor do we live in a nation that doesn't support free enterprise and capitalism. So you have to put yourself in a position where you go out and you execute, and yes, it does take some legwork. You go to a subdivision, you find where they're working in the Centex subdivision, the D.R. Horton subdivision, the Lennar Home subdivision, and all these guys are for hire. Every single one of them, and they're public roads. So mind you, you can park on the street, you can go in, you can get phone numbers, and you can execute your bids based on these people that are already executing in your local area. Now, if we can build like the merchant builders, if we can build like the program builders, if we could take those prices and we can implement them into a semi-custom and custom home, we can get our builds done for a lower price per square foot, provided you manage them correctly. Now, what do I mean by manage them correctly? That means you're communicating with your contractors. That means you're on the phone with them. You're giving them lead time. If they don't show up, you're holding them accountable with a phone call, making sure they show up that afternoon or that next day, and you have a schedule, itinerary, an estimated time for completion on every single project. Now, the biggest thing is that in the beginning, you will find the best contractors based on relationships and those who execute in the bid room. Those who execute the most professional in the bid room and can execute the quickest and most effectively and efficiently are typically the ones that operate the exact same way in the field. Because how they do one side of the business is how they do the other side of the business in most case scenarios. So look, vet your project and your bids from beginning to end. Once we vet the project and we get our construction loan, that's not where value engineering stops. You have to position yourself to go in and continue leveraging the lowest price possible from start to finish, because you may save several thousands of dollars through your build, especially if market circumstances change. Like, for example, lumber just went down 11%. Typically in the summer months, lumber goes up because of commodities, oil, travel, leisure, and people that are all over the country visiting family, friends, and everything else. This summer, lumber went down 11% in spite of leisure, in spite of travel, and in spite of commodities, some commodities going up, lumber actually dropped. If you don't go in and you don't ask for a discount, they're going to retail it to you for the same price that they bid it for prior. So make sure that you're always paying attention to market circumstances and you're always value engineering your builds from start to finish. So number 4 is value engineering. Now, once you go in and now you have your budget spreadsheet for the bank, right? We didn't talk to the bank too early. Now we went out and we put our project out to bid. We got the right area. We got our comps. We know that the affluency is there. We know that we can get this project done. We're checking boxes. Okay. Now we know that we were able to get our build done for the price we need because we put the project out to bid. Now, where number 4 comes into play is value engineering. And this is where most owner builds come short of getting the best price per square foot. Now, when we go in, and even like these big commercial projects that we do, a lot of times we'll go in and we might be at $185 a square foot. And we say, well, we got to be sub 180 a square foot to be able to come in and build these. And so we know that we're at 185. We can afford that. But we also know there's going to be contingency variables, and we also want to pad our bottom line just in case market circumstances work against us. And the only way to get the best price per square foot is to continue to value add your project from start to finish. So number 4 is value engineering. Value engineering is when you go in and you reduce the price of your lumber before you actually drop your frame package. Value engineering is when you go price out your cabinets and you get a $35,000 bid and maybe you budgeted $30,000, you go in, you figure out a way to get them down to $25,000. Value engineering is when you get a bid for $25,000 on drywall and you're able to bring it down to $23,000 last minute because now you have a second build that you're getting permitted and you let them know that there's a second one coming right after this one's done. And you go in and you negotiate based on leverage on the second one, and you ask them, hey, I have more homes coming. Would you be willing to give me a $2,000 discount if I commit to you for the exact same price on that home when it's ready here in the next few weeks? And they'll sit back and say, yes, but I want the other house too. I'll say, no problem. Give me a discount on this one's yours, and so is that one. And so when you continue to value engineer through the project, it gives you the ability to reduce your bottom line out-of-pocket costs, and all of that money lands up going back into your bottom line and into your pockets. Number 5 is a common mistake that most people make because they're already busy. You're busy. I'm busy. Everybody's busy. But the level of importance that you put into your project is the exact results that that project will bear. And so I tell people that you have to show up. One of the biggest problems that I see in owner builds is that you're busy going to work, but you never make the time to wake up 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 45 minutes earlier every morning, go out to a job site and show up 30 minutes before you're supposed to be at work and just check and balances throughout your work. Most people sleep on it until things get carried away. They say, oh, well, the framers are there. They can call me if they have a question, and I'll just show up when they're done. They got at least 2 weeks worth of work to do. And when you go in with that type of attitude, you're going to have 2 weeks worth of bad shit that's happening on your job site. So it's always important that you show up and you manage your job. If you go in and you spend 5 days a week and 1 hour a day on those 5 days, you will be amongst some of the best general contractors that don't show up at all. And if you go in and you spend 1 additional hour making calls, scheduling subcontractors, dealing with problems, ordering materials, you have 10 hours a week into a project that will bear you 6 figures in 6 months from the time you start to the time you finish the actual construction. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these 5 things are super important to consider as an owner builder when you're going in. Can I afford 10 hours a week? If I can't afford 10 hours a week, how am I going to manage this project? And are there ways to manage this if I go a little slower through the build? Instead of taking 6 months to build this, I take 9 months to build this, and then I go in and I underwrite the extra 3 months of debt service that it's going to cost me because of the lag time. But if it's not catastrophic and it gives you bandwidth, it gives you sanity, and it gives you ultimately the ability to get the project done and profit, then take the extra couple months. That's not me. My personality is once I start, let's get this damn thing going and let's get it done. In spite of how busy I am, I will always make time to put my responsibilities where my responsibilities lie, and that's in my projects. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it all has to do with personality. It all has to do with desire. And at the end of the day, it has to do with your state of mind. And so if you go in, I always tell people, make the decision to commit. And if you commit, you'll always be successful. Now, look, ladies and gentlemen, there is so much content available for ground-up construction that we've put together for you. You want that content? Then click and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Pound that thumbs up button, give me some love, and tell me, Jerome, this was helpful. And then comment down below. If you're rewatching this for the second time, put hashtag repeat. Otherwise, you comment down below, click and subscribe. God bless, and go out and compound your success.